evening and welcome to another episode of Gary's Classic Cars. So tonight I'm going to be looking at doing pre-checks for the show season on the classics. I'll be doing the Singer Chamois in green first, and then we'll move on to the Sunbeam Sport at another time. But just thought I'd do a few run-throughs of things that we should be looking out for when they've been stood for a while. If your garage is a little bit damp, sometimes your brakes will be dry and rusty, especially if you've got drum brakes, which I've got. Disc brakes tend to just have a bit of surface rust on, but all comes off pretty quick once you get up and running. But just sort of check over like the reservoir levels for the clutch and brakes, engine oil, water, etc., wiper blades, tyre pressures, all stuff like that, which really we should be doing on the generally every week, but we probably never do on our classics, and I certainly don't do it on my modern. I just put fuel in and away you go, because that's what they like these days with all these lights on. So what we'll do, we'll get started and we'll start at the front, and we'll just check the brake fluid and the clutch reservoir. This is always a good indication if you've got any weeps that have occurred over the Christmas period that's been laid up, or the winter period. And the level will have dropped a little bit, so let's start with that one. Okay, so firstly we're going to check the brake and clutch master cylinder reservoir here. On the Hillman Imp it's at the front because the engine's at the rear. So I'm just going to unscrew the cap. Now I'm running silicone fluid here, and it has dropped a little bit on one of the pipes, which I think is the brakes. Now that could be just down to the brakes shoes wearing, and obviously the fluid level will drop. So we'll whiz the wheels off and check that. The other thing people probably don't check is a spare tyre, because you never need it until you need it, and then you're in trouble because you've got a flat. So I'll just nip and get my tyre pressure checker. This one here. It's quite simple. We just press the button to zero it, and then just put the push the gauge on. Right, so I've got 3 psi in that. So that's probably about okay for the Hillmans, because they do run at the front a little bit lower, and the rear's a little bit higher. But we're okay with that 23. So job 1 ticked off the list, or so job 2. So we need to check the brakes and that. Right, so what we'll do then, we'll move round to the wiper blades. So I'll just close the bonnet down, or the boot, because it's a rear engine car. And what we'll do, just pull the arms back and just run your finger along the blade, make sure they're not pulling off. That one's good. These are pretty new, and that one's in good condition. What tends to happen, the rubbers at the end split, and you end up with them no good. So the next one, we'll go around to the rear, and this is the beating engine of the 1020, probably 65 brake horsepower Coventry Climax engine. So the first thing we'll do, we'll check the radiator cap and the fluid. So I've got a stainless steel cap on this because they don't rust. So that held a little bit of pressure. There's no gunk on it, so it's not condensation in it. I have been running it a bit. I don't think we're seeing there, but I'll just put my finger in. Water level a little bit low. Now this does drip a little bit of water on the water pump, so we need to just top that up with a bit of antifreeze. And then the dipstick, a bit of a not too tricky but awkward. Dipstick's down here, so we'll pull that out. It's a bit tight up to the coil, and we'll just get a cloth. Should have one hanging around behind me, and we'll just dip the oil. Now it's probably due for an oil change, because I tend to change them beginning of every season. Then I know where I'm up, and I do about 2,500. But that is absolutely bang on the line. You can just about see, and it is quite clean, the oil. But I say it's probably only done. It's not done many miles this last year, because I used the red one quite a bit. So what we'll do, I've got some mixed antifreeze here. I use the blue stuff in this, so I'll just top my radiator up with it. Yeah, we're topped up, so probably half a pint or so. So, like I say, it does leak a little bit on the water pump, but I struggle with new modern seals on old cars. We'll look at the ignition system separately. And fan belt, we should always check that. Now, the rule of thumb is you should be able to turn half a turn on the belt, and that's tight enough. You don't want them on these particular cars, you don't want them too tight because it hammers the bearings on the water pump down here with my hands on. And then you end up having to rebuild the pump or buy a reconditioned one. Also, it puts a bit of extra load on the alternator or dynamo. This has been converted to alternator to make it a bit more amperage coming out of it because of me ancillaries like my cigarette lighter for my sat nav and whatnot. So I think the next stage would be we'll start checking the rest of the tyre pressures. Right, so okay, I'm lucky enough to have a compressor and a proper tyre inflator, so I've done the other three. I'll just do this last one. I run these normally about 20. There's 15 in both fronts, which is for me a bit low, makes the steering a bit heavier. But you don't want it too much air in them because they get a bit light on the front. Not so bad now we've got the lowering spring kits available, but and these are a bit wider tyres. These are a cheaper tyre I bought off the internet called Minerva, and they've been really good. With them being 12-inch wheels, they're quite difficult to get hold of tyres. Mostly trailer tyres, but these are proper car tyres and they've been really good, and they've got a nice soft side wall as you can see, and they've stayed really well. 175 70 12s, and they hold the road really well, rain and dry, and they seem to be wearing really well. But we'll have a look at the tread pattern in a bit. So that's where we're up to now. So I've done all the tyre pressures. That's another job ticked off the list. So now we'll jack the front up. I've got my trolley jack here. Now I jack them up on the front wishbones, so I tend to take that out and that jacking point, slide my jack under because it touches the number plate, and then get it in the middle. I've got a little offcut of some timber decking that I tend to put under because it's a bit lower. Just put my shoulder and lift the car up a bit. That's it, and we'll just jack it up. Let the handle off. There we go. And so the first thing we'll do once we've got it jacked up, we're going to check the kingpins. Now these cars have kingpins, like all the older cars in the past used to have kingpins, but as they moved on, Ford's used McPherson strut with their bottom ball joint. British Leyland had a ball joint top and bottom, and the Metros and the Minis and whatnot. But mostly all the other cars, unless you had double wishbone suspension on the front, which would have had a double ball joint, they were all used to be kingpins, and they need regular maintenance of grease putting in them because they do wear, particularly with the state of the roads these days. But most classics, older classics, have a lot of grease points on. Minis, even Metros, Hillman Imps. So it's important, really, you grease them. So you lift the ground there. I've got the handbrake on to stop it rolling anywhere. Fingers crossed we're alright there. Right, we're just about off the ground there. So lock that handle off. So what we'll do, we'll just check the wheel, top and bottom, and we'll just give it a quick wobble. So basically, get the top and bottom and just give it move left, up and down, or in and out. And there's a little bit of play there, but you do need a bit of play. And check left to right, which is checking the strap that ends. So there's no movement in that, and the wheel spins freely enough. Right, so now we'll get the wheel off. One problem I had when I had the wheels banded, you can't get in with your screwdriver to flick the hubcap off without resting on the wheel rim. So I made this little T-bar out of stainless steel, so you can see that there, I've got the camera right. Yeah, and I put a little hook on it and I rub the back to it. And this just helps me get my hubcap off. So I can see where it goes on, let's feel it round, and then just give it a pull, and we're off. So I made one from my friend Mark's system, who's got banded wheels as well. So got one of these electric guns, so we'll whiz the wheel nuts off. So I've got my impact socket on it. Right. So that's that done. And we'll whiz the wheel off. So the tyre, done about 10,000, no, probably like that. About 7,000 miles on it, and it's wearing really well, nice and equal. Did have this 4-way tracked when I did the car, so it's not done a great deal of mileage. So right, that's where we're up to now. So we'll get the light underneath. You can see how dirty it is. I've been really neglecting this car over the last. The tyre's just rubbing a bit on the arch there. So what we'll do, we'll give it a clean up while we're here as well. Get the old wax out, spray wax. I use a cheap spray wax underneath, and just give it a quick wax over, and it gets all the muck off and whatnot. So we'll leave the light there because that'll help us see the car better. So what we'll do, I'll move the camera in, see if we can see. But at the back here, get the light behind. Oops, I'm on the wrong side. On that side, you'll see the grease nipples where all that grease is. So what we'll do, we'll get the grease gun out and we'll pop a bit of grease in. And what happens, it comes out the top. See where it's out the top there? That means it's pushed it right through the kingpin. And we've got a path, a grease path through. So I've got my grease gun here. And what the best thing to do is turn the wheels a little bit when you do this. So it gets in right in all the joints. So just a couple of pumps. And you'll see. You can see that worm that's come out. I'll do it again now. Difficult with one hand, but oh gee whiz, need about 3 hands here. But I'll try and hold that like that, and you'll see when I pump the grease gun. Very difficult. I don't think I can do it unless I can get the camera there to see it. You might see it come out of the. Turn it that way and put the light behind it. You should be able to see the little worm of grease coming out. Oh, the grease comes out of grease. That's great. Not very well prepared, am I there? Right. Okie dokie. Okay, so unfortunately, I have no grease. So I'll have to buy a new grease cartridge and we'll come back to that. So what we'll do, we'll move on to checking the front brake pads, brake shoes. So this has got a Phillips screw holding the drum on, so just unscrew that. Now these should just, he says, fall off quite easily. So we'll just give them a bit of a pull. There you go. And we're off. And there's a brake drum. It's got a little bit of brake dust in it at the bottom. Just from the usage, just sliding around. Now these are new shoes, new old stock shoes, so I think these have probably got asbestos in. So what I'll do, I've got a bit of cardboard here. I'll put the cardboard underneath, and I'll get my brake cleaner, and I got it in somewhere. There's a blooming brake cleaner. Oh god, I'm not very well prepared at all. I had a squirty bottle with brake cleaner in, but there it is on the floor. I did with my wax, my polishing wax. So I'll get a rag. So what I'll do, I've got a brake cleaner here, so I'll just give them a bit of a squirt just to get rid of the brake dust, and it doesn't contaminate us with asbestos. Now bought this in a gallon can, and it just evaporates, so it does no harm to anything. It just gets rid of the dust. Do inside the brake drum as well. I'll just let it dry off onto the cardboard. Right. Okie dokie. So, the old cloth here. And what I'll do is give round the edges of the inner drum. Back plate. Just to get a bit of dust off it. Right. And right, the shoes off. So what I tend to do, get my screwdriver. If you slide your screwdriver, it should push you'll see that piston going in, which is what we want. So it's not seized. These are new cylinders. And then this one will prise out. We can. Yeah, and that one's working a treat as well. That's not seized. And I'll just pull the rubber back. What I tend to do is pull the rubber back, and it's dry, nice and dry in there. I'll pull the rubber back here. You can see it's nice and dry in there behind the rubber. So we know they're okay. So we have a couple of brake spanners. There's two different types. There's this type, and then there's this one, which is the same, but it's got flexible head. So I tend to like using this type. So we have two adjusters. If you can just see in there, I'll try and turn it. Put new adjusters on this, but got a little adjuster in there. It's a little nail. And what you do, on the back, there's a square to pick up. And what we'll do is when we get the spanner on the right size, the smaller size, when we move the spanner, so in this case, if we move this anti-clockwise, it pushes the brake shoe out, as you can see. And we move it clockwise, pushes the brake shoe back. And this pin goes all the way through, which this nail sits on. And as you turn it in and out, it brings the shoes in or out, expanding the gap between the piston and the shoe. Once you pump your brakes, they'll go down a little bit initially, and then once the fluid's filled that, your level will drop, and then your brakes will be okay. So the key is not to adjust these too tight. Now I know these are okay because I've put new adjusters on both sides. So I'll just slacken that. So again, slacken it, we're going anti-clockwise. It takes the shoe off. It's not even resting on anything. We go clockwise. It pushes the shoe out. Just make sure they're free. Yeah, happy days. Right, so what we'll do, we'll give the drum a quick dry off on the inside. Get any of the dust off we've missed around the outer rim there. And then we just line the screw all up, pop the drum back on. Like that, and then we'll screw the screw back in with whatever I've done with it. Which I don't know, because I'm losing my mind. Right, here it is. I'll just put the screw back in. There's a little bit of grease on that screw, which I've put in the past. Stop it seizing, because they are a bit of a nightmare when you get a bit warm, the brakes. So we can see that spinning free as a bird. So what we need to do now is turn this clockwise to put some tension on. So keep spinning, and if I wind it right up, oh, it's anti-clockwise, sorry. If I wind it right back, you leave it catching, and then we take it too far, the drum won't turn, that's too tight. So what I tend to do is just get it really tight, and then just wind it back a little notch at a time. So that's just nice, just a bit of a catch. These drums are slightly oval, but that's the trouble with older shoes. And see that it's a bit tight there when I took it back, because when it gets hot it'll stick. We don't want that. So that's just nice. Right, so we'll do the same with the bottom one. We'll adjust that one right up, and it'll work. The spanners are a bit worn out. That should be tighter. Tight that, yes. Tightening up. Take it up a bit more, and it won't turn. Yeah, right. So what we'll do, we'll slacken it off a little bit now. There you go. Just steer it, catch it. There you go. That'll do us, I think. I just don't want it too tight because we'll end up with it having a problem. See, it's a bit tight that there. One notch back. That's right. So they're all adjusted. Key thing is press the brakes before you even drive off. All that does is just centralise the shoes. So a nice rock solid pedal. Centralises your shoes in the drum. And jobs are good one. Right, so now we've give the wheel arch a bit of a clean. You can see I've got this car's been done 6 years now, so it's not perfect by any manner of means, but it's pretty clean. You know, it gets used everywhere, and it doesn't get mollycoddled in the garage all the time. I get out and about. So this is the underneath, the front panel, the spare wheel. Well, there's a steering rack. So I've a bit more cleaning up to do. I've done all the floor pan down the back there. That's all been cleaned again now. So I'll crack on with the other side and report back when we do the rear. Thanks for watching.